And we're off and running.
That was quick.
Yeah. Well,
All right, serve it up. Come on.
what are we doing
So
here?
quick. Or slow.
What are we doing here?
This is the Marital Arts Podcast with John and Tara.
Hey.
And our coffee.
And butter coffee. Butter coffee with coffee made from native root coffee.
Ching ching.
Top of the Andes Mountains in Colombia, harvested by the NASA people. Depulped, dried, clean, roasted, shipped to America by Irvin Liz and his team at Native Root.
Yeah. Awesome stuff. Have you shared your recipe lately?
That's pretty good. Oh, well, I don't have exact measurements here, but it's about 32 ounces of coffee that I make. And I French press it. And then I use about, 23 grams of butter? It's about 4 heaping tablespoons, but you got to flavor
It'd be
it.
more than that, because I think that whole bar is 223.
Okay, it's a third of a half of a pound of butter. roughly.
Yeah.
So, but you got to flavor it to your taste. That's what
It's a little sweeter this morning, but I mean, like, really good. You know, the nice balance of sweetness brings out other flavors. You know, it's a lot.
And then I add about a tablespoon of brain octane to the whole thing, and then I add about a tablespoon and a half of raw cane sugar.
Mm-hmm.
So
it was just hardly any at all for that amount of coffee.
The amount,
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you want to take the sharpness off for the butter coffee. I just like to take off that sharp coffee bite.
You using like a machining term or something? That's not a machining term, but like if you're just taking a slight edge off.
Take the edge off. No burrs,
Yeah. So it looks like your kitty liked her breakfast in bed this morning.
Well, we're trying to get them on a new food, right?
Yeah.
So.
Well, they're both older, 14 and 16, and so you start seeing the health issues coming out, you know?
I've had cats and dogs my whole life, and I will, dogs will eat anything. People say they won't now because dogs are indoors, but our dogs were always outdoors, and so outdoor dogs will eat anything.
Well, they'll eat poop.
Well, they'll eat cat poo right out of the sandbox when they find it.
Yeah.
Like a little Nestle's Crunch. And,
no offense, Nestle's.
Oh no, it'd be more like a Nut Goody or $100,000 bar. So yeah, dogs, you don't have to really cater their food to them, but cats, on the other hand, will almost starve themselves if they don't get what they want.
No, before they starve themselves, they will do every annoying thing they can think of to get you to do what they want. So fortunately, they both really liked this new one. So
yeah, well, I served mine. Maggie was up on her tree, and I let her smell it, because I have a strategy if you want to introduce a new food for cats. You take it to them where they are, and you let them sniff it, and no matter how they react, you just take it away, right? You just let them sniff it, so they're getting a whiff and they're getting used to it, and they're in their comfortable spot. So it's kind of like a treat. Oh, you're serving me, and cats love that. And she just started eating it right away, which surprised me. It really surprised me. So I left it with her, and she had breakfast in bed.
Yeah.
And that is not a good habit to start. That's for sure.
But if it gets her started eating something new,
right?
She's been having constipation issues, so we don't want that to escalate. Just not TMI, but a little FYI.
Yeah. Well, you wanna watch. Their normal diet, they'd be getting a lot of blood and guts and livers and all that kind of stuff. So they'd have a lot of, they'd have the bile. They'd have everything if they were eating mice and rodents and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, pre-digested grains.
Yep.
So they
They'd have the fur for fiber.
Yep, fur fiber.
Fur fiber. And they'd be fine.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. There's a lot, that we can learn about our health through animals, and of course, animals have been tested upon for years. I'm not necessarily promoting that, but we can still just learn from our domestic animals. So.
Right. Yeah, and excuse my voice this morning. I still got a little bit of a sore throat from working outside. I went out and I learned on our first couple of cold days. It was about 3 decent cold days. I was working out on our homesteading projects, putting in the shed floor and building the platform for the sauna and that kind of stuff. And I learned a couple things you don't want to do. You don't want to be sweating on the first couple cold days and working outside, and you don't want to continue to work through that. You want to put a hat on, because my ears got really cold internally.
Oh, internally.
Oh yeah, I went all the way down into my throat. It was freezing in my throat and my ears.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really heavy. I didn't care. I was just like, whatever. Now I care. But and the farmer was combining the beans, so the air was full of dust, and I shouldn't have worked through that too. Because you combine that dust with all the other stuff I was doing, and then the next morning I woke up and my eyes were just full of sleep because of the dust and stuff, and I was blowing my nose. And
imagine what it's like for the farmers.
well, they're in a HEPA filtered cab.
Imagine what it was like back in the day when they didn't have that.
Back in the day, it was, you made sure that you were going with the wind.
Probably had your bandana on.
You're going against the wind, or side wind, so the wind was blowing it away from you.
Yeah. But still, there were some of the people that lived the longest, it seemed. If they didn't get...
The old farmer?
Yeah, the old farmer. If they didn't get hurt tragically in an accident...
Yeah, they didn't get their back broke by the bull.
Yeah, when you live around those... Did you poo?
Or the heifer, or the 1,800-pound heifer that just wanted to lean against you.
Yeah. Good morning, I love you.
Crack.
Oh, man.
Crack your ribs and send one into your lung and bleed to death in the barn.
Or the horse. Yeah, there's a lot of...
Yeah.
Glad we can choose to homestead.
Well, back in the day when I was young, I knew a lot of farmers that were missing fingers and some missing hands, some missing feet.
I remember in 3rd grade, the teacher sat us down and said, now, I don't know if it actually happened right outside of our window. So I grew up in the country, and there were farmer kids in our classes and in our class, and they actually sat us down and shared that a farmer had been grabbed by his combine essentially and died.
Yeah.
And when you're little, you don't really have reference for a couple miles down the road or that farm down there. So to me, I was like, did it happen right outside the window? But that was real. I don't know why they shared that with us. That was maybe probably too much information at that age, unless it was a family member or something. Anyways.
Well, there's always those teachers, my, excuse me, I think it was my 2nd grade, might have even been my 1st grade class. The teacher told the entire class that there's no Santa Claus. And
That's totally different.
Just out of the blue.
Yeah.
No, it was like ripping your parents away from you.
Yeah. Well,
I'm saying so terrible.
Yeah.
The entire class was wailing and howling and crying and sobbing and screaming, and I mean, it was just so devastating. They had to call all the parents in. The parents had to come and pick the kids up.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened to the teacher. I don't remember, but
you should ask your parents.
There's all those teachers that think they're smarter than everybody else,
You unfortunately had some pretty bad experiences. I'd say that I liked school a lot. I really liked my teachers, most of them. I don't think I had a teacher that I really didn't like, but Yeah, but it sounds like, but that experience, holy cow. And then
School for me was one big bad experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was. There was, you know, I wasn't, when I was young, I was inquisitive. When I got older, I was rambunctious. And then as I was a junior, you know, sophomore, junior in high school, I was a little bit nefarious. So
Yeah, that won't bode well for
I was fed
being
up.
on the teacher's good side.
Yeah, I was fed up with having to be in school because I was working full time and I didn't want to be there.
Yeah. Well, I can definitely see in life where, you know, at least a high school education really does provide you with the basics of what you need to know. And most of all, it's for your own good, I think. First of all, that, you know, if you don't know math to a certain degree or how our government is run, you know, someone can really pull the wool over your eyes. If you can't read decently or write decently.
When I was 12 years old, I would ride my bike to the township meetings and the caucuses for election time. And so I think that education is all around us, and you know, people can get education wherever they find other people that know what they're doing. You know, I mean, it's, you know, I had many jobs as a young person. I worked with many people. I did lots of miscellaneous things and learned mostly the stuff I didn't want to do. That was so educational to me. I mean, when we go talk at these colleges and we're talking to 22-year-olds and they've never had a job, that's so far outside of the spectrum of understanding in my mind.
Knowing what you don't want to do is more valuable in a sense than what you do want to do.
Well, you could plot a course. It's like if you were crossing the country as a settler, you wouldn't want to get caught in an area where you travel 100 miles out onto this giant peninsula and it's a cliff. You know,
or
now you have to travel 100 miles back just to get around where you started.
You think you're going through the valleys of the mountains, and you find that there's another mountain, or you took the long route. I was thinking of an actual road where the lines, you know where you're going, but the lines keep you in line.
Well, that's the way it used to be. People used to apprentice with, you'd go and you'd apprentice with the local machinist, or you'd apprentice with the farmer, and you'd find out, you know, what's going on. You know, or you'd work a summer, you know, in my time, you'd just work a summer with the farmer, you'd be detasseling corn, or you'd get a summer job at a hardware store or something, you know, local car lot, you know, I did everything. Tore apart cars to clean them out. I mean, you wouldn't believe the way people would trade in some of their cars. Just, you would think there was lots of dead people in the cars. It would smell so bad. I mean, it was so terrible.
Yuck.
Stuff in the carpeting you could hardly get out. But then the car companies had all these really harsh chemicals to clean anything, and
wow.
So we'd pull out seats, we'd pull off the door panels, you'd find just rotten stuff inside the door panels, like it had leaked down the window. Yeah.
I suppose I could see that.
Yeah, just you couldn't believe it. I mean,
somebody's old Twinkie.
You pull out the center console and you'd find a moldy something underneath there, you know. It's just like, it was crazy.
Wow.
Sometimes we'd have to go in, they'd have this foam that you put in the vent system and this flexible sponge thing you'd put down in. Like people were pouring pop in their vents or something. I mean, it's just, I didn't last long in that job because it was so disgusting.
Yeah, that when I went.
And then I worked at Green Giant for a day. Mm-hmm. I went through the week of training and sitting in classes, and then I went out on the job the first day, and I was up on this 25-foot ladder. I was going to be pressure washing out a pea hopper, and I was at the top of the ladder spraying out the pea hopper, you know, so there's no corn in your peas in your corn when they switch over for canning, and I was coming down the ladder, and the sprayer hooked in the ladder, and there was a sprayer that had massive PSI, like you could stand against it leaning forward while spraying.
Wow.
And it sprayed and it went shoo, and it took my arm back with it, and I fell off the ladder. Took me right off the ladder.
How high were you?
I was probably 15 feet up. I landed flat on my back. I protected my head. I had been doing martial arts, so I was already doing falls and stuff and learning how to chin tuck.
Fortunately.
Yeah, yeah. I was wearing a hard hat, but I still tucked. And landed flat on my back, laid there for a second, and everything was fine. And I stood up and left. I said, "No, I'm not going to do this."
That and corn tasseling.
I mean, it was my mistake, but the detasseling. We were just up the road, 2 miles up the road from my house, and went out, got on the bus, went out there, out in the field. I'm thinking, hey, I live close to here, and we started detasseling, and it was the most humid, miserable, terrible day out, and everybody was like, oh, and there was nothing you could do. I mean, we all had like wet bandanas on our head and stuff, and
yeah, because you're in the corn and like there's no air movement, and
no
the
airflow.
Corn is sweating.
No airflow.
Essentially.
Yep. The corn is humid. The air is humid. It's hot, and I think I did like a quarter of a row, and I turned around and said, "I'm leaving." And the guy's like, "What?" I said, "I'm leaving. I quit." And he goes, "You can't leave." And I'm like, "Yeah, I live right down the road here." "Well, you can't leave." And I'm like, "Yeah, I can. I'm leaving. These boots are made for walking."
Right. Wow.
"Take this corn cob and shove it down. I ain't working here no more." I just...
Making up your own songs on your way home.
Yeah. "Well, take this job and shove it."
Okay.
That's a song. Yeah. Yeah, the walk home was enjoyable. I had a lot of time to think. So, yeah, I learned very early on things I didn't want to do.
Yeah. So something that we were going to talk about is, we both were under the weather for a while and fortunately kind of staggered a bit. And
yeah, you got yours first.
I won. I got it first. Me first.
Yeah, but you still haven't crossed the finish line. You still got a little bit of it.
It's really hung on. It's like
it's
really
just been 2
strange.
Weeks. It's a week and a half, 2 weeks.
Well, for you, it's going on 3 weeks for me, and I'm just like at the tail end for quite a while.
Yeah, it's flu season. It's your standard kind of cold, head cold, which gets into your throat a bit. And
not fun.
No, it's not fun.
But we've had to cover for each other, with the chickens, rotate. We were already both tag teaming, taking care of the chickens.
Yeah.
But you got to clean the brooder for the first time. Wasn't that exciting?
It's easy.
I know, it is easy. I was meant to do a video on how quick and easy it can be when you put down paper first and then you put the wood chips and stuff.
Yep.
So I'll still have to
Newspaper,
do that.
you roll up half on the one side, take it out. They get to go over to the clean side. You roll up the other half, take it out. Then you lay down paper, and then they come running over and they're looking at you. And some of them like to peck at your hand when you're doing stuff. And the ones that want to be touched, they put their chest up, and you rub their chest a little bit. And they're like, "Oh, whoa, why are you doing that? Oh."
I guess that's okay.
Yeah.
Well, we have several roosters, but a couple of them are especially big.
Yeah.
Most of them are twice the size of the others. One is like 3 times the size of others, and he's definitely the head honcho.
Yeah.
And you've had a couple actually
I call him
escape.
I call him Big Roost.
That's his name?
Yeah.
Okay, I should know that, so when I'm addressing him.
Okay. Well, chickens actually, they can remember, what is it, up to 18 or something names of other chickens.
Yeah, I don't remember the number, but it was something like that.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Like they recognize you, they recognize up to 30 people or something like that. I mean, it's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm finally not. It took a good week for me to not scare them in the morning when I went down. They've gotten used to my voice, so that was good because I think one of the videos I'm like, "Hey, chickies," and they're like freaking out. And there's such thing. The real thing is being a chicken.
Yeah.
So yeah, you had a couple of escapers. You were.
Well, they just jumped up on the edge of the brooder.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
They
our
hopped
brooder
up on,
is a
like-
big water trough.
So they hopped up on like the feeder, and then up on
No,
the edge.
no, straight out of
Oh,
the bottom.
really?
Yeah. Yeah, they're shooting up. They get a run. They run and they jump. So that's why the grate's over the top right now. We can have a little bit of open space because they can't do it at that angle. So.
Yeah. So we're going to be finishing their coop this weekend.
Yeah.
And we've been starting to acclimate them to the temperature, been turning off the light every once in a while.
Yeah.
Because you start them out, since they don't have a mom to nestle under and stay warm, you use a brooder lamp.
Need a heat lamp, yeah.
And we've been turning that off every once in a while. I think today should be the first day. I already turned it off. I think today should be the first day where it's off all day and all night.
Yeah.
They're big enough now, and they have enough feathers is the main thing.
Well, they can always huddle together if they're a little chilled.
Yeah, so we need to get them ready because we got them at the most awkward time typically. You would get chicks in the spring, so as it gets warmer outside, you'll have a warm environment to turn them out into. Mm-hmm. But we wanted to get them earlier or before winter.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, that'll be really good.
Yep.
Yeah, they're just happy if they're fed and they have a place to roost.
And they're warm enough.
Yeah, they like to roost. So,
gosh.
Yeah, we need a cough button.
Yes.
We don't have a cough button on the iPhone. This podcast, potentially sponsored by Apple in the future. Try out the new Apple cough button
right.
for your podcast recordings.
So it's, was it November 6th? And it's getting kind of chilly. It's getting below freezing at night. Mm. So, yeah, we got to get some outdoor projects done before it gets too cold. Fortunately, it'll be in the 50s, 60s today this weekend. So,
yep.
But tag teaming work, just kind of getting into marital art, some marital art stuff.
Cooperation.
We were definitely...
We have cooperation, number 3.
Yes. Definitely patience. You know, you said a number of times, thank you for being patient with me as I'm not feeling well. I feel like...
Well, I feel like a pile of garbage, yeah. If I can't do anything, I'm utterly worthless. And I am, I could talk my head off, but I'm not. I got to be doing stuff too. So I don't think, I never want to be sick for longer than in the time period that I need to be. Because, I would not be happy.
Well, unfortunately, in a way, me getting it first helped me to have more patience and understanding and be like, okay, I remember this stage,
Oh, you mean empathy?
Yes.
Oh, you had empathy for me.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep.
Mine hit a little bit harder because although maybe I was going to get it, I don't think I would have got it if I hadn't done what I did outside. If I hadn't, I worked myself hard. I mean, to the point where my hands hurt, to the point where my legs were so sore I didn't want to squat down again.
And it's so ironic because we were getting things ready to assemble the sauna.
Yeah.
Sauna.
Sauna.
And both of us were like, oh, it'd be so good to have the sauna.
I know.
Now. And it's like,
but I couldn't continue.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I know. Probably should have just hired a neighbor to come over and put it together. But it probably wouldn't have been good to use it in the middle of all this.
I don't know. I think it could have.
Guess we'll find out in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. So, patience.
Of course, I don't normally get sick, so I haven't had something like this in a long time.
Yeah, neither of us.
Many years, like probably 10, 12, 15 years.
Something that lasted more than a day or two where you
Yeah.
actually had to take some time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually took 2 days off of work. That's incredibly rare.
Yeah.
I'm like one of those guys that worked a place for 30 years and didn't take a day off.
Well, and it's when it's your own business, it's different too.
Right.
Like I actually had to work through it, and the day that my brain was the foggiest, because when you get sinus stuff, your brain feels foggy.
Yeah.
I had like several newsletters to write and put out, and that was something else.
Yeah. I've most of the time, if I ever got sick in the past, I would work through it. I'd just go work. You just don't cough on your coworkers and just tell everybody, take your vitamin C, take your D, take your elderberry,
Your zinc.
keep your, don't wipe your hands on the toilet and put them in your mouth.
Well,
all that stuff the government had to tell everybody in the last year.
John, don't be getting all like rowdy now.
Because of all the ignorant humans that don't know how to not keep garbage out of their mouth.
Yeah. So it sounds like, of course I would make you food or rub your back or something, but it sounds like kind of just even my patience and understanding for you during this time was very valuable.
Yeah, last night you rubbed something else. That was pretty good.
John.
Don't be good at all. Pop
Get
culture.
All rowdy and stuff.
Pop culture, or what pops up. Ooh. Yeah, well, that was number 4, make love. Yeah, you were making love, taking care of me, being understanding. I was very understanding of you. I actually told you to take it easy a little bit. I'm like, take it easy, Tara, a little bit. Sit down here, come over here, cuddle a little bit.
Yeah.
Get some goodness all over you. So yeah, number 3, cooperation. That's why it's patience, communication, then cooperation. Mm-hmm. There is a specific order to these that makes sense for a long-term relationship.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, you even have to have the patience, first of all, just to be able to take the time and observe what's going on.
The marital arts. You can have more marital arts. We have 10 main ones. You could have more, and you could order them differently if you'd like. But the marital arts are just that. They are an art. Marriage is an art. It is a business also, but it is an art.
Well, I think the difference is, so when, let's just take someone who has a job, just take, it could be any job.
Yeah.
They could be a doctor, a nurse, a teacher, let's just go kind of the standard list, right? Mm-hmm. A lawyer, whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
There's the tasks to do, there's what you've been trained to do, and then there's the person that can just take it to a whole new level. Mm-hmm. And they really have developed an art. They're artful about it. It's not so much about the procedures anymore. Those, or what they do, that's by rote. But it's what else they've incorporated into their practice. Mm-hmm. And
they have a style, they have an efficiency, they have a method.
Well, it makes them exceptional. And, there are things that we do by rote in our marriage. Mm-hmm. And I think it's different for each marriage, particularly I'm speaking about the roles, right?
Yeah.
And we have certain things that each of us does specifically, and then there are things that we'll toss back and forth.
Crossover, yeah.
Yeah. And, if one is working extra hard or long,
yep,
or not feeling well, then we'll cover for each other.
We both cook. We both clean. Primarily you clean and do the laundry, but I can do both.
Yep. You have your own way of doing it, and I have my own way of doing it.
I look at it and say it looks clean, and I'm done.
And I say you can do towels.
I can do towels. I can do darks. I can do,
jeans and t-shirts.
I can do delicates and whites and colors if I wanted to.
Yes, I know you are capable.
I know that you like to do that.
I love it. Actually, I don't mind laundry and stuff. Sometimes it's kind of a good break in a way.
Yeah, you don't have to posture like a feminist.
No, I gotta take a pause. Okay, I'm back. So let's actually talk about that, feminism.
Oh, geez.
I know, I'm getting rowdy here. I'm the
I
rowdy
think we
one.
should just include it in our talk like I did. Like I said, you don't have to come across like a feminist, because you, right away when I started talking about cleaning and doing laundry,
Yeah.
I saw it on your face. There's a face women make that were raised by feminist mothers that had this doctrine driven into them, because I cook, I clean, I don't go, oh yeah, well, only when I have to, you know. I just that's Manji. And I just do it if I need to. You know, I do it if I want to. It's something everybody can do, everything, you know. Mm-hmm. We have roles, there are people do things, like I take the garbage out better. Mm-hmm. Like the garbage can get pretty dang heavy. Mm-hmm. Right? And you got to lift it out of that can with one hand. Mm-hmm. Right? So sometimes we could have a 35-pound garbage coming out of there, and it's like, holy cow.
And then I usually take care of the recycling. It's
Yep.
I'm making sure that your parents take stuff to the recycling, so I make sure it's not too heavy. And yeah, we just seem to kind of break things.
Well, we fit into roles, and we're not arguing about things, and then we're also cautious with each other. I don't come around and go, oh, look how messy the house is, if the house is messy. The
house is never messy. What are you talking about?
That's
all your stuff.
Sure, but I don't do that, right?
No, you don't.
I'm not yelling at you to get dinner ready. Mm-hmm. You actually eat a lot more than I do, a lot more, scheduled. You're on a schedule. I could have a breakfast and then not eat until 7:00 at night. Mm-hmm. And so, I'm more based on what I have to do rather than what my body feels like.
But I think that's something that, early on, of course, you have to kind of figure out who's going to do what and so forth. But we settled into that pretty well. And I could see how as marriages change, life changes, particularly with jobs and kids and...
Well, we did everything together in the beginning. We would cook together. We'd make our
We'd even shower together. I mean...
There's that. And that's the key to a great relationship. There you go. Marital art number 100. It's called 101. Mm-hmm. No, it's we made I was going to make a joke, but no. We made our peanut butter and jelly bagels together. We made our tuna fish sandwiches together. We made because we were living on a budget.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And we were doing an online business, and we were buying our own products, and we were living off of our own products.
But I think how it happened is, I moved into your place. You already, were doing your own cooking, cleaning, laundry, yeah. And you had your system. Yeah. And so you obviously you were capable of those things. Yeah. And thankfully,
obviously. Yeah, I was extremely capable.
And I I was raised in an environment where I was taught I could make meals, I could do laundry from a young age. I was so little, I learned to do laundry when I was so little that I would have to hoist myself up over the washing machine to then teeter over the edge.
Reach in all the way to the bottom.
Right. Yeah. And learned how to flex my abdominal muscles to protect my little ribs and put it in the dryer. And yeah, I was capable from a young age for doing such things, which I think is very valuable.
And I was a single guy with an iron and an ironing board.
Yeah, you knew how to iron. But apparently not how to wash wool shirts.
Yeah, shit happens.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to kind of reverse engineer how that happened, because this is a topic you hear of often in couples, is like, she's not doing this, he's not doing that. And it's like, you need to like really figure this out.
Well, I would just do it. You took over the things that you wanted to do because you wanted to impress me. You wanted to show me that you were a quality woman and you could take care of a home. And so...
Was that what I was doing?
That's exactly what you were doing early on, I remember. Because I would do it with you. I mean, we would do laundry together, we would clean together, we would make the bed together, we did everything together in the beginning. We took showers together.
That's right, I remember that.
I was reminded of that just a minute ago.
I do appreciate it that when you vacuum, I think you do probably a better job than I do, unless I'm taking
I like power tools.
Well, it's perfect.
Yeah.
And then you get the Dyson out and you can really see what you're...
I have the best. I have the best vacuums. I have Electrolux and Dyson. Yeah, I like power tools.
Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to think of like how that worked out, like you... Madgie's pretty vocal this morning.
Yeah. What you doing, Madge?
Then, of course, when you talk to her, she doesn't respond.
Yeah. Well, if I acknowledge her, then she'll show up here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We have some pretty typical roles. Like, you'll take care of the vehicles, and, if I'm out, of course, I'll put gas and wash them,
Yeah.
Or I'll take my vehicle, it's ours, but it's kind of like our kitties. They're ours, but there's mine and yours. Yeah. To the service center to get serviced, so it's interesting. I think we really tag team well, it's like a well-functioning baseball team or any team, you have your roles, but you do what needs to be done.
Yeah. I think the greatest thing about us is you're not trying to be a powerful woman and I'm not trying to be a sensitive man.
Well,
we just have our personalities and we accommodate for the situations and we work very well together because we want to. Because you remember early on I said you were drilling holes in the boat and I said we're in the same boat and you're drilling holes, and if you keep drilling holes I cannot bail fast enough.
Yeah.
The person drilling holes will always win. Mm-hmm. And if you're trying to win a competition of sinking the boat you're in, then your relationship's not going to last.
Do you think at first that I honestly understood that I was, until you said it, do you think I knew that I was drilling holes?
No, because you learned very terrible habits from women in your family.
So I wasn't trying to get you to say that in particular, but I was trying to get you to acknowledge that I do think there are times where people really don't know that they're drilling holes.
Excuse me.
And first of all, I was willing to listen and work with you.
If anybody's listened to our podcast, they know us well enough by now that it's okay to say that, and that what you're asking right now is genuine. Do you think I knew that I was drilling holes? And I would say absolutely not. Mm-hmm. You were just behaving the way you saw the women in your family behave.
Do you remember an example of what I was doing?
Well, okay, the funniest one.
Okay, that's probably a good one.
Because it was all very humorous to me.
Okay.
Because I knew I was dealing with a neophyte in relationships.
Yeah.
You're a greenhorn, and so I admittedly left a cupboard open in the kitchen. Yeah. You, not watching where you were going, ran your head into it. And the first thing that came out of your mouth was my name.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I don't see that. I still don't see that as like drilling a hole. I mean, that's,
No, well, just...
Because years later, we heard of a story of a woman who knocked herself unconscious and had brain trauma from that very same incident.
Yes, and I'm sure many people have died from it too. But...
John.
Right, there it is.
It's not drilling a hole. Uh-huh. It's looking at you going...
I know, but it's a light example, which I thought was hilarious. You didn't get brain trauma. You didn't get knocked out. You just bumped it, and you hollered at me because I left the cupboard door open. Mm-hmm. You didn't look in the mirror and say, why did I run into that? Why did I not see? Why did I not look where I was going? If you step out in the road and there's a truck coming, you can't yell at the truck driver, right? And I should not have left the cupboard open, okay? It was absent-minded of me to not shut the cupboard door after I had gotten my whatever out of the
Well,
cupboard.
it's like when you're working together in the kitchen, and I mean, you run a shop. I'm sure you're very obviously aware that it's like in the kitchen when there's more than one person, you got to be especially aware. Like, I just put a knife in the sink in that bowl or something to soak. Just so you know, don't just go in and grab it. There has to be extra consideration. So give me another example, because I don't think that's actually a good.
So I don't remember the. Well, that was just a little bit of levity.
Uh-huh.
I thought it was funny, but I didn't laugh at you because you hit your head.
Yeah.
I was laughing at you because you hollered my name. It just made me laugh immediately. Like, what in the heck are you hollering at me for? So anyway, I mean, I take the blame for it. That's fine.
Uh-huh.
But you shouldn't blame me for your own sake.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I'll just.
Anyway.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you have to admit that right now.
Well, we don't have cupboards anymore, so it's fine.
I got rid of all the cupboard doors.
We have open shelving. Problem solved.
Yes, we have open wire rack shelving. It's very utilitarian, very wonderful. You can see everything. And we have open, thick oak board shelving, which is very rustic.
Those are really cool.
Very, very industrial looking, yeah.
Yeah.
And we have a stainless steel three sink.
Yeah.
We have 3 sinks, deep sinks, like you see in restaurants, and we have.
You can pile dishes for days.
And we have stainless steel countertops.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love our kitchen.
Okay, give me another example of how I was drilling holes.
I don't forget the exact example, but when I said to you that you can't fit in my pants, you were telling me something about, you were on a little bit of a rant. And I learned early on that you got these rants from your mom because she would do this. And you were giving me the business, you were like, I don't think you should do that because of this, and I think whatever. And I said, okay, are you done? And I literally put my foot down on the floor, like did a light stomp. And I said, I'm putting my foot down and telling you that you cannot fit in my pants. And you were like, what? And I'm like, yeah, you're trying to wear my pants. And I'm the one that wears the pants in this family, and you don't fit in them. And that type of mentality from me lasted probably until, 7 years ago? When we were,
What's the mentality?
when we were up in the porch and you said, I want to be your equal. And I laughed and I said, you can't handle it.
Yeah, I probably.
And you got mad at me. You were upset that I laughed.
Maybe even 6 years ago.
7 years ago, yep. And then we went on this brilliant path, this brilliant journey of becoming more than we were and understanding more about each other, accommodating more for each other, helping each other more, being more aware of things, having different conversations. I mean, it's kind of what spawned this podcast.
I was just going to say that was about the time, there was a good couple of years where I was looking for resources about couples in business together, and particularly if she'll be okay.
She smells it she's smelling the food on Maggie's tree. Why don't you grab that food and put it in the kitchen?
I'll show her where hers is. You carry this for a minute.
All right. Yeah, so that time in our relationship lasted quite a while, probably about 13, 14 years, where I literally was very honest with Tara about what she was capable of and what she wasn't in all senses of our relationship. And what I was doing in being that way with you is I was prepping you, I was prepping you for the future, because like I've said in the past, my ultimate goal is for us to have that balance of yin and yang and be the complete. If we're going to be a couple, we need to be, because she's going to jump up there and get that food, you better go get it. Because we can't accommodate that.
Accommodate what?
We can't accommodate her going after Maggie's food out here. So just put that by Maggie's spot in there. So all that food is in the kitchen, yeah. Yeah, dealing with your cats. When you have two cats and one is dominant, you gotta have a process for them. Otherwise, they'll go a little bit crazy.
There you go. It's in the kitchen. So, sorry, I missed a little bit, but we're still on topic of. So there was a time period where.
Well, your britches are pretty big now. You can wear quite a utility of pants now. You're very good at what you do in business. You're very good at what you do in our relationship. You're very good with everything, and I would trust you with everything. I'd trust you with even my business, and that's huge. I mean,
well, yesterday we were out before a meeting, having a pre-meeting meeting, and you said something similar, and I appreciate that you don't fill me full of hot air. You're a straight shooter, which what I appreciate is I grew up around straight shooters, but it wasn't always nice. And it's not that it has to be nice.
A lot of guy cousins and uncles, right?
No, actually, they were nicer.
Oh, they were nice. Okay.
Yeah.
It was the women that were the problem?
Yeah. And I think there's value in being a straight shooter, but you don't have to be mean. And I have a few things to stream together here.
Sure.
What was really valuable is that, and still is I appreciate that I know what I hear from you is going to be the truth, is going to be honest, and will be to the degree of intensity that is necessary. And so when you said that just now or yesterday, I like knowing that you're genuine, and I appreciate that, and I feel that. I always feel that I can be and do better, but I am feeling a lot more capable, and it is what you talked about in the porch several years ago, which is, do you want to be on the same level? And when you first hear that, it's insulting because
you
it's
said, I want to be on the same level. And I laughed at you and I said, you can't handle it.
But it was preempted by something saying we're not on the same level. And at least from my memory banks, and maybe it's just how I felt through the conversation.
Could have been.
And so I knew inside that I was capable of more, but I didn't have the vehicle or the I didn't see how I could do that. And that's when you brought me into the shop more. I started doing the books and learned new skills, was capable, and the thing is, what I've learned about myself since, and I'm going to relate it astrologically, but not too deep, is that astrologically, my chart is a Miss Bossy Pants chart. I am meant to be Miss Bossy Pants. And what happened is, in hindsight, I think what happened was I had these tendencies. And before I met you, I was already on a trajectory of, I want to do this. I made it possible for myself to go on exchange, earn the money, the scholarships.
And you dated weak men, weak guys. They were boys, but
they were. Yeah. And so I was already getting accustomed to wearing my own bossy pants, right? And, when I was 15, 16, I was convincing my parents to take me to these interviews so I could get the scholarship to go on exchange. They didn't want me to go really at that point, but, I was determined and doing everything along the way to prove that I wanted to, I could, I was mature enough, and there was never really a doubt. I was mature from a young age.
Yeah.
But so what I'm saying is I was already accustomed to, feeling my oats, at that stage. And then when I married you, it was a new journey, it was learning to work together and, what does it mean to be that type of person, especially when you grew up in a household with more of the feminist dogma, how do you balance that out? Plus, the other part of me, though, is my fantasy was I loved, like, I never idolized bands or singers or anything like that. I loved, like, Little House on the Prairie. And I can see the metaphor here in my current life. We live where we were. Right. And, we it's very homey, it's mom, pa kind of stuff.
You can go out in the yard and pick herbs and.
Yeah, it's very much like that in a modern sense, you could say. And so while I had let's say the bossy pants gene astrology, there's also very much the hominess. And so, gosh, how do you combine that, and especially, you can look to role models. I had an aunt, I would say, that was very much a homemaker kind of aunt, but she wasn't the bossy pants. I don't know, maybe she was behind the scenes, I don't know. But I think all women too, this is kind of the joke, right? That she's not the bossy pants, but really, she has her ways. Yeah. And that's ultimately what I needed to learn, was that you can still be your own personality and have that bossy pants personality on a very holistic level. Because no one likes actually a bossy pants person. It's like, do this, do that, do this, do that, But if you develop your personality to work with people, you can still, because I think there's a part of my personality just that feels like this is what needs to be done. No, it needs to be done like that. And for quite a while, so first I was Miss Bossy Pants with you and seemingly drilling holes because I didn't know how to communicate. Rather than just saying this is what needs to be done, now I communicate better, I think. So that's number 2, right?
Yeah.
This is what I'm thinking.
Marital art number 2 is communication. Yes.
This is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm seeing. If it continues like this, I imagine this is what would happen. And which is way different than coming across upset because I'm feeling insecure. I'm feeling scared. And
well, you had learned to react with the instantaneous emotions. You hadn't learned to be able to project a vision down the road of what is going to happen, or you weren't taught that you got to let people go through their process. Like when you first would ask me to take out the garbage, I'd say yes, and then 5 minutes later you're like, you haven't taken out the garbage yet. And finally I would say, well, you didn't give me a time frame. Yeah. I asked, and I'm like, and I said yes. And I'll get it done, and so, you brought up feminism earlier, and, the funny thing is to me that feminists are still running around saying feminist, but you never hear a man running around saying masculinist, because men are just doing their thing, right? And women are trying to tag on to what men are doing by saying, well, a woman can do that too. Well, if a woman was doing it or could do it, it wouldn't have to be said. It would just be done, and men would be much happier. And what feminism has done to women, like you said earlier, you love the fact that I'm a straight shooter, that I'm just going to tell you what I see. I'm going to do it politely until I get massive resistance, and then I'm going to be kind of a dick, and I'm just going to point it out in a harsh way at that point. But in the beginning, I'll be very polite, but if you go into these meeting rooms that I'm in, if you go into conference rooms and it's all men, we get everything done. As soon as you introduce a woman, half the room spends all their time complimenting that woman, and women have really, pushed this demasculating or emasculating men in a way that causes men to not be men. They think they got a compliment. They think they got a, oh yeah, Becky, that's a good idea. Everyone in the room is going, that is retarded and we're not going to use it, in their mind. But outwardly they're telling Becky, that it's so great, and
is that really all the time?
Every meeting I've ever been in, unless now it's on a scale of how good looking the woman is too.
Okay.
So yes, so if it's a blonde bombshell coming in with big tits and just bouncing in the room and she's wearing tight clothes, that woman will disrupt the meeting more than anything. But if it's a butch looking chick that comes in and she's maybe an engineer and she's just all about work, I really get along with those women in work, in business, because they just want to get the job done and they want to be efficient and they're not looking for compliments. But the blonde bombshell bouncing in, will feed off the compliments. And it's just really not a good thing. It shouldn't be 50-50 in these rooms. It should be potentially one woman to, 7 or 10 guys. I mean, it's not productive in my mind. I see it from the outside, right? Because when I go into a company, I don't work for that company. I might be doing a job for them, but I don't work there. And none of the managers are my supervisors. So I watch the dynamic from way outside. I'm like in meta position, just like, what in the hell is going on here? And it even happened in my company. I had 2 marketers and I brought you in. I had 2 guys that were sales, outside sales. And I brought you in for marketing and we were all sitting there. And I had to put my foot down in a couple of those meetings because all they were doing was catering to you.
Well, and I would say it's not just because I was the woman in the room. I'm also the boss's wife. And so who is going to contradict the woman and the boss's wife in the room?
But it's not about contradicting. It's about, if we're saying something, I can say, well, the direction we need to go is this. This is the directive, right? We're looking at this. We want to accomplish this. We don't need to come at it from 20 different peripheral angles. We need to just get it done. Mm-hmm. And, when you bring a woman in, they do think differently. They're thinking, maybe a little more artsy, maybe a little out of the box, maybe, there's a demographic we're not hitting, but when you're understand the context of everything, the woman will shift too. But most of the guys won't explain it. They'll just be like, oh, that's a great idea, Tara. We'll consider that. And then you go off into your fantasy land thinking you had a good idea. And that hurts a person. I mean, if it was a guy, that guy would get ridiculed. That guy would get teased. That guy would get put down. Bill, hey, when you decide to get the shit out of your brain, then come up with an idea, okay? Nobody says that to a woman because that's sexual harassment or something, or sexist or something.
Well, it's at least insensitive on a human level.
Yeah, but guys can do that with each other. That's why our economy grew the way it did. That's why our industry grew the way it did. It didn't grow because of Rosie the Riveter. It grew because guys just go and get stuff done.
So I'd like to point out something. I think there's a difference in the stages of feminism where it went from, why can't a woman
vote?
Yeah, vote,
have
her
a
own
bank account, own land.
But
yeah,
let's
I
just
get
say,
it.
let's just say, but what I was actually going to address is her. There's a difference. These days, they're promoting that any woman should be able to do whatever, you know, and it's a difference between can and should.
Yes.
And or is the door open?
Well,
so
they're starting to force it where they're saying boards have to be 50-50.
Early on, it was, there are intelligent women. Think of a Judge Judy. I remember watching a show about her, and she's all about her family. She's very much a family person, and she's like, I had my 2 kids, and then she's like, I was at home, and I'm just like going nuts. There are women that, raising their kids, is not their calling.
Well, she didn't say the age, and there's nothing more disgusting to me than a woman that can't handle her kids.
It was.
I'll just put that out there. Call me whatever you want.
I think they need to be around the parents at, I think when they went to school or something, maybe she went, I don't remember, but she was with them for several years.
Well, I'm sure her husband doesn't explain. She makes over $60 million a year, so I'm sure.
This was in her first marriage.
I'm sure having a nanny is okay.
No, John, this is way back. It was in her first marriage. She wasn't working at that time. I don't think she was even an attorney at that time.
Yeah, but we don't even know how old her kids were.
They were little. I remember seeing a picture, and they maybe like 3 and 6 or something, and then someone asked her, would she be on this board or something, and then she kind of started doing stuff part-time, and then things just kind of escalated from there. But what I'm saying is that there are women who are just geared differently.
By the way, were you talking to me when you said my name?
Jen, earlier? Yes, I was talking to John.
Jen?
And so back in the day, if Judge Judy couldn't have been a lawyer or a judge, this is a person who is not just, I'm a woman and I should be able to do whatever a man is allowed to do.
I want to critique.
Let me finish.
Go ahead. Yeah, you can finish. Before you go too far off of Judge Judy, I want to critique it.
Okay. So there's a difference between the doors need to be open for women who can be just as capable. Doesn't mean that all women are just as capable.
So I want you to address what you just said. You said the doors need to be open. When were the doors opened, and why is that a discussion now?
It's been made into a different discussion. The doors are open.
You know why? Because women never quit.
Oh.
It's that nagginess that continues, right?
Yeah. This is solved actually, but we need to take it to the next level. Yeah, because for me personally...
Because it's like raising kids. They go after everything like raising kids, and then when the kids are grown up, they want another baby. And they'll end up with 4 dogs or 25 cats.
Well, I can recognize there is that tendency, and I've heard it and I've experienced and witnessed it in myself, and I think there needs to be an important distinction, and I've had to acknowledge this for myself, that just because I might be able to do something that a man could do doesn't mean that it's really even appropriate for me as an individual.
Mm-hmm. You know why the Second Amendment, you know why there's no real fight over the Second Amendment? Because it exists, right? Men aren't fighting to be able to put machine guns mount on the side of our heads because we have the Second Amendment. We can do whatever we want with guns, and now we need to fight to be able to have, anal shotguns. We're not trying to make the Second Amendment more than it is, right? And that's what feminism has done. It started with the vote, started with the property ownership, started with the stuff. But you got to remember, back then there was only like nannies. There wasn't daycares. The whole society couldn't just go to work. All of women couldn't just go to work, and like Jordan Peterson brings up all the time, there wasn't facilities for women, the sanitary napkin or the tampon or anything like that wasn't around. And
John, I'm talking to you. It's a tampon.
I don't care.
Get it right.
I don't care about that kind of stuff. It's like people telling me to say America. I'm like, I don't even understand that. So
yeah, I think it has been distorted and taken to another level that is not, in general, reasonable.
Yeah, the fight is over.
I can say for myself, who, I was raised in that generation to take it to the next level, that I had to come up to that hard wall myself and realize I may be mentally capable. There are things I'm not physically capable of, and I don't just mean like being able to haul a sheet of plywood. I mean also like certain hours of work.
Yeah.
I can work.
Yeah, you could haul a 3/8 sheet of plywood, but not a 1/2 inch or a 3/4.
But even
they get heavy.
Okay, we'll continue. All right, another kitty break there. So, like I was saying, I've been learning through my own experiences and realizing that, sure, I may be mentally capable. This occurred one day when we were talking about...
Well, you're saying you couldn't carry a piece of plywood.
There's sometimes you need the actual physical examples to remind you of the non-physical examples. So I might want to complete a project like we talked about homesteading, and you could have done it all yourself, but I couldn't do it all myself.
Right.
And so it had to be something that we both wanted to do, or I would pay for help, or
I knew how much work it was going to be. I built stuff in the past, and I knew it was going to be work.
So similarly, I think what's being lost these days that there are things that a woman may be mentally capable of, right? But depending on her priorities in life, she may not have the endurance, and I'm going to speak for myself.
Or the skill set.
Or the skill set, like we were talking about the talk on the porch several years ago.
Yeah.
I had the desire and the capability of learning, but I didn't yet have the skill set and therefore not the understanding.
Right.
And this was the time when I was looking for resources on how an entrepreneurial couple, or you're married to a entrepreneurial spouse, how do you handle the situations when you're like, this, I feel like the alarm system is going off, but I don't know if I just have a faulty alarm system, because the entrepreneurial realm is very different.
Or you can't handle the innate pressure. I mean, there's innate pressure. In 2020, we put $2 million worth of equipment in our facility. I talked to you about that more than I did in the past. In the past, I would just say I'm buying a machine, and that was when early on you felt like it was going off the rails because you had no controls. You didn't even have any gauges to tell you, what was going on. I was just buying machines. I was just hiring people. I was just doing my business. And now when I do something, I do run it by you. I talk to you about it. I say, this is going to be, $2 million is a major nut to crack every month, and that's a lot of payments.
Yeah.
And so, I had to decide, and the opportunities were there. So it wasn't just, can I afford it? The opportunity was, is this ever going to happen again where I can do this? And then setting it up so that if you fail, you only fail a little bit. And I can explain that in a business podcast later, but,
Yeah.
but,
So the risk isn't as great.
Yeah, gauging and calculating and structuring and all these different things, Running a business isn't just about cash and checks and telling people what to do. Running a business is an overall life strategy, and it has to fit into your marriage. It has to fit into your daily routine. It has to fit into your travel radius. It has to fit into your skill sets,
So I had a lot of learning to do in the sense of, instead of just reacting from the outside, to have some context,
right.
To understand, okay, is John actually as crazy as what seems like is happening, or what is the context? And so getting back to kind of the we have a couple train of thoughts going here, but
and the answer was yes on both fronts.
I think it's innate as an entrepreneur. There's a certain level of kind of craziness.
That's what it looks like from the outside. But you know that you're making calculated risks, and you know that it's a risk. I mean, you start a business, you don't know if your customers are coming back tomorrow. You could have 10 million customers, and you still don't know if they're coming back tomorrow.
So I think there are different kinds of, and I'm going to do this as a general class of business owners. Now, business owner is a general category, and it ranges from someone who has a business that is a predetermined system, like a franchise, or maybe they came into a family business, or already has a system, to the total other end of the scale, where you have the entrepreneur, inventor,
somebody
innovator.
with an Etsy shop.
No, they're in the middle somewhere.
You're talking on a large scale. Yeah.
On a large scale, you have, it's a personality scale type.
Yeah.
And so you have many types of business owners, and there are those who are very calculating, and they won't get into business ownership unless it's calculatable, predictable.
Yeah,
and so
a set system. Set up. Yeah.
And then and I would say that's like the business owner side, franchise, like I mentioned. And then on the other end of the scale is the entrepreneur, who tends to be an innovator, an inventor, a visionary. Now that will go to the other end of the scale a bit, it's a scale. But what I learned is you are more on that. We knew from the beginning, I knew that you're an entrepreneur.
I'm on the spectrum.
And the thing is what was nerve-wracking to me is that I'm more on the other end of the scale, where I'm like, I do my books every week. I track my sales. I have a very different business.
Yeah.
Also,
you would like a steady, predictable, kind of an on-off switch. I like the variable switch.
And that's nerve-wracking to someone
with a timer
like me.
And with a...
Yeah. It's nerve-wracking because you have such a high overhead, and there isn't a line of jobs waiting.
There's no guarantees, yeah.
And now, granted, in business, there's no guarantees for any business, but there can be more predictability built in.
You're more likely owning McDonald's to have customers stopping in because it's a system. Then you are Bob's Burger Hut. People aren't going to know what Bob's Burger Hut is. You'll have your local 100 or 200 people that know about it and love it, but somebody driving through town is going to choose a McDonald's over a Bob's because they've seen McDonald's, they've eaten at McDonald's, they know what McDonald's is going to do. You don't know what you're going to get at Bob's, right?
Yeah.
So
it helped me to be able to identify what I was seeing, and honestly, I had to come to a level where I was going to accept that. Mm-hmm. And you're the visionary type person. I'm an operator type person in business. And so that gets it a bit into what I was looking for years ago in, how does a couple who are both or one is an entrepreneur, handle the ups and downs, gauging, is this, the opposite end of the spectrum might be the person who's married to someone who owns a franchise and is predictable. You have your systems, you have your suppliers, you don't have to look for new suppliers all the time, but maybe they're pinching every penny and working every hour they can squeeze out of themselves. That's the other end of the spectrum, and the spouse might be like, is this reasonable? How long is this reasonable for? Is this necessary? So that's the kind of thing I was looking for. And I think there are answers, like, for example, a new business, takes a good solid 2-year startup minimum. Mm-hmm. And even in the first 5 years, you're going to be working very diligently. And so that would be a time frame to count on.
Yeah. I would like to go back and critique your Judge Judy statements.
Okay.
Comparing yourself to Judge Judy is like comparing me to Jeff Bezos.
I wasn't comparing myself.
No.
Just,
Women in general is even worse. So because you're a go-getter. You're a 6-figure person. You're a person that is cranking it out, making it happen, doing the things. You have contractors, you have teachers, you have advertising, marketing thing. You're dealing with all this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So the general swath of females in the United States you need to compare to their own parent, their own mother. You can't compare them to a Judge Judy. You can't use that type of an example, because Judge Judy is an incredible person with an obvious calling to influence hundreds of millions of people.
Around the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
She is not...
Probably out of this world, too.
She is not your local going to the bar, bowling, bitching about her husband having an affair or two over the next 20 years with, she's not your average woman. Mm-hmm. And we have to distinguish,
The distinguishment, though, is I wasn't bringing her up as an example for other women to compare themselves to her. It's comparing the earlier round of feminism to the current round.
I know, but I think you should just take a woman. You should say, I can imagine a woman with 2 kids, right? And I can imagine she stays home for the first 6 years until the kids start going to kindergarten or first grade or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And then during the day, she gets a job, because she's been literally at home for 6 years. And I get that, to say it the way that people say it, like, oh, I was going nuts, that's such a disrespectful statement to family, to motherhood, to raising your kids. It should be, after 6 years, it should be more well thought out. And I know I heard Judge Judy say that, and she is well thought out. She should have said something different, in my opinion. She kind of fed into the.
And it could have been how they edited.
Yeah, but she fed into the feminist narrative, right? Of that, well, why should anybody have to stay home to raise the kids when, they're old enough they can go to school? Well, now we're finding out what the schools are doing to the kids, and now we're, and so parents need to be the number one responsible people for their kids, not
absolutely
pawning them off, not going off and looking for something else, not, so.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think there should be a little more average comparisons. I understand the big name comparison, Warren Buffett, Elon Musk, but we need to stop talking about these people.
I think there's a difference between, it is that, and I agree with what you're saying.
Because that wrecks your mind.
It does.
You can't read the book of the wealthiest investor, Ray Dalio. I remember when a friend of mine gave me a Ray Dalio book, and I started reading it, and then I found out who he was, and I'm like, this is not a book for me.
Yeah, he plays in the billions.
Yeah, he's a multi-billionaire, the most successful investor in the history of the world. Mm-hmm. I'm a tool maker in Hutchinson. What am I reading this book for? And you even talked to me, well, I'm sure there's some principles in there and stuff. I'm like, no, there's nothing in here for me. This guy, first, he's not even in my realm, and I'm not trying to cross-train by learning from an investor. He's dealing with thousands of people in his corporation. I'm dealing with, at the most, 16. I need to read about the guy that had 30 to 100 employees. And like you said, we need people like that, like what we're doing here. We can take people from 0 to a couple $1 million in business, right? We could take people from 0 to 20 years in marriage because we've been married 20 years, right?
Almost 21 in a few days.
Right?
Yeah.
Woo, high five. Low five.
The old-fashioned.
Yeah, take your pants off and show me some stuff. Yeah, it's our anniversary. So, but we can do with people the things we've done, and we've got to be very careful speculating. You wouldn't want to talk to your 8-year-old about what Jeff Bezos did. That's preparing your child to shut off all of their creative juices. And people don't realize that. It's like when you said to me, you were complimenting me, you were saying, I just think, I don't even understand why you're not a billionaire yet. That statement made me feel so terrible about myself. And nothing makes me feel terrible about myself. And I'm going, holy cow, what a failure I am in her eyes. And I know you weren't thinking that. You were thinking I was incredible, right? Yeah. But I was like, and then finally I told you, you can't say that to me. You can't say, once I'm there, if I ever get there, great. We can compare all day long, and we can talk about our expectations and how maybe they were too low for too long. Who knows, right? Mm-hmm. Or maybe they were way too high for too long. Go ahead.
I have a really great example of this because those years, that time where I was looking for a podcast, a book, whatever, about a couple in entrepreneurship, and is he crazy, essentially, is what I was looking for. And I did find one book that was about this woman wrote, but it was at the point where they were millionaires.
Yeah.
And I was like,
yeah,
this is a case in point
you
of what
talk
you're
about
saying.
the struggle.
I was like, no, I need to know, because I started reading, like, I think the preview in Amazon or something
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm like, no, this is not what I need. I need something that's helping me when I'm in it, when our bank account is at $100 at the most
Yeah.
for 3 weeks, and we're not buying anything, and yeah.
Why do all the car companies rate the cars from 0 to 60?
0 to 60 miles an hour?
Yeah.
I don't remember. I don't know.
You don't remember? Did
Well,
you ever know?
I think yeah.
Because that's where the race is won. How you get off the line and how fast you get up to speed is where a drag race is won, right? Drag races are very rarely won at the line. They're won on the start, right? So you take that analogy for everything. That's what you were looking for.
Unless you're in the Fast and the Furious.
Okay, now be
and
quiet.
then you kick it.
Now be quiet. You were wondering how to go from 0 to 60. You weren't wondering from 60 to 120. You weren't wondering from 60 to 900. You're like, I can't even get to 60. I can't even get to 10. You were like, how do I get from 0 to 60 in this marriage, in this business life that we're living, in this stuff that we're doing? And I feel like I don't have any control. I feel like I can't. Well, if you can't get that car from 0 to 60, if it goes out of control at 30, right,
Yeah.
you need to know what to do. Well, we need a stiffer sway bar. We need thicker tie rods. We need wider tires.
You're spinning your wheels at the start line.
Right. We need more traction. We need a traction bar in the back. They used to have these traction bars on axles because they would twist and move like this, and they would stabilize so both wheels were pushing same amount to the ground. And they don't do that anymore. But yeah. So that's you need to know how to go. Maybe we should write that book. Is he crazy or is he? And you know what? You're crazy if you don't succeed, and you're a genius if you do.
Yeah.
On the same damn track.
Yeah.
Yep. And so that question can only be answered in the result. And I've said I've thrown away lots of money, and I didn't think it was throwing it away at the time, but I thought I was investing properly. I thought I was doing the right, and for the time I was, for my knowledge I was. You can't take your future knowledge and put it in your present per se. I mean, because you don't know what the future is, right?
Yeah.
We didn't know 2020 was going to happen. We didn't know what 2021 was going to bring. We don't know what 2022 is going to bring. We only know after we've gone through it. And so making your calculations, checking your environment, making your calculations properly. You might say, you just spent $50,000 on that. That could be in our savings. And I'm like, if something happens, $50,000 is nothing. I mean, we're going to burn through that. If I don't do this in business, I'm going to have to do this, and then that's going to cost me more money, or I have no potential for making money. And a good example is we put in the spinner in the EDM, right? So we have a wire electronic discharge machine, and it cuts metal with electricity. And we put in a 4th axis indexer that can also do high speed spinning. So we can make round things in the EDM. Normally you can't. You could make round vertical things, but just that'd be a plug or a hole. But now we can do it horizontally, so we can make shapes and we can make cuts and make round parts on it, on a part. And that was $55,000 just for that unit, right? And it didn't work right in the beginning, and it was out of alignment in the beginning, and the company wouldn't do anything for us, and they were telling us to do all the things that were wrong, and I was like, what in the heck is going on with you? And it's a German company, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. And we figured it all out on our own, and we got it set up right, and now it's where we need it to be, and we won't let them touch it now.
Yeah.
But $55,000, and I didn't get it on time. It was like 14 weeks late, so I had jobs pushing out and I had all this stuff. But that one investment has saved me probably $100,000 worth of time, work on other stuff, because I can just spin up these tiny little parts. And
so that's interesting. You put it in the aspect of savings, but how much then have you made as a result?
Well, we would have done the jobs anyway. That's why I say savings, right?
Okay.
So that profit then, that's profit. Savings is profit, right, to me, right? So
yeah.
I didn't have to spend $100,000. I saved $100,000. That's profit.
Yeah.
Right. So we would have done the job. We did the job previously, but the amount of time that it took was insane compared to what we did this last time with the same job. Yeah. So it was a savings of buco time. I mean, and that was the job where we had 5 or 6 times between the 5-axis machines and the EDM, back and forth. Now, I spent all that money because I had to have the holders, I had to have I had to have everything to be able to do that. But now I can do that. So every time I go from the EDM to the 5-axis and back and forth, we laugh about it all the time. It's like, man, do you remember what we used to do? You remember how hard this was? You know, remember what, you know, and how long it took, and the amount of scrap we would have, and and it was just, it's amazing. So that was a choice. We've never had a machine like that. We never had a unit like that to operate a machine that way, and we never had everything palletized, and we palletized that, and I mean, you know, that was an extra $3,500 just for the chuck on that thing, and you know, so many costs. Like you said earlier, my business is overhead intensive.
Yeah.
You know, if I want to be able to do something in a machine a different way, it costs me thousands of dollars, and it might be multiples if I'm doing 30 new fixtures. I mean, that could be $15,000 in fixtures.
See, it's helpful for me bringing you into the production company is that you are a visionary. And so it helps to see, in a production company, you have a tendency to be a little bit too far down the road. And so in your industry that's totally physical, you know, the machines weigh tens of thousands of pounds, being too far ahead can be quite a detriment.
Yeah.
Unless you have amazing investors that are like, just go for it and invent stuff. They have deep pockets and they see the long-term vision. Then that's fine, that's great. But if you're trying to operate day-to-day business, being too far ahead in a very physical industry can be detrimental. Now, my business is more ethereal. It's sound, it's video, you know, it's digital. And so it actually pays to be further down the road.
Well, you do a project once and you get paid on it forever. I mean, you get paid on it as long as people want to watch it.
Yeah, and as long as people want to watch it, and as long as you're advertising it well.
Right. I don't have that kind of residual in the machining business.
And so, but speaking of vision, you know, it's keeping that idea, keeping the ball going down the road, and where I can easily get caught up in the minutia, not necessarily the minutia, but just the operating idea. Now I think I've created and have a natural sense of, no, we need to keep this going. We need more of this. We need to be advertising that. But you have the 30,000 foot view capability. And on the contrast, you know, where your business comes into play, I think you've been able to scale yourself to have the vision that is appropriate for the distance that you can go.
Yeah.
But, you know, when we talk about things for that business, you know, that's where, you know, I'm balancing out the other end of the scale more.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I started my business during a time, the machine shop, during a time when I could have had 14 shops across the country. I could have had 500 employees. I could have had a massive massive business, and it could have kept growing and growing and growing. But then we hit the housing bubble of '08, and then we hit 2020, and there was a couple of years in between that weren't that great. And that type of, for a guy like me, that type of process has shifted. Like you said, if you have good investors, I did everything off my own dime for the longest time. I expanded the business, we moved, we grew, we bought machines, we had 2 locations. That was all on the profit of the company, which even then was unheard of, and we were very good, very capable, making lots of money, and then, the asteroid hit. And so you have gotten to see me shift. You've seen me invent products. You've seen me create things. We have a patent on one of them. And then you've seen me scale back, and then you saw me scale up, but do it in a way that it can be run by minimal hands on deck, right? And that is, and if it shifts again, I'll change again. I still have an unlimited vision. I still have the idea of doing all the things I want to do. The Moses Project could come back into play. I could go off on that and start that up as a business if the economy shifted, right? If the economy was in the right place. And, it's but you gotta be aware. I mean, you can't come up to the river and just say, okay, we're going to walk over it. It's 12 feet deep, but we're just going to walk over it. And our horses are going to walk on water too. And our
Oregon Trail. I know all about forging the river.
Right. And then you come to the mountains and go, well, we're just going to go straight up there and straight down there and over this and over that. You've got to know your environment. You got to know the terrain. You've got to decide your plan. You've got to make sure that, it's the most survivable plan for everybody involved, and then you got to make those decisions. So I think you say I'm a visionary, but I think first of all, my trade, all the guys are visionaries because they take a print and then they take a block of material. They're literally seeing the future, right? They're seeing that part come out of that block. They just have to remove the material. And then if they're making a piece that's part of a bigger whole, they might be making 12 parts that go on a fixture. They have to think about it in the sense that all these things need to go together, line up, fit, and be accurate, right? Mm-hmm. So they're envisioning the future. Mm-hmm. And so I think that type of thing is just natural for somebody like me who has been in that trade for a long time. And, and then turning it into business, your vision goes farther out and your vision of your environment grows laterally or radially around you. And,
I'd say your astrological chart makes you very naturally a visionary as well.
Yeah, I gravitate more to the business side of things than I do the hands-on daily operation of building parts and that type of thing. Mm-hmm.
So is he or she crazy? Yeah. Marital Arts entrepreneurial book.
I'll be like Jordan Peterson. If you guess that the woman is crazy, you'd be correct 85% of the time.
Why does he?
And if you guess the man is crazy, you'd be correct 30% of the time.
You're saying on the scale.
Those are just my stats.
Oh, okay. Well, depends on what the question of crazy is. Is he riding a motorcycle? Then
that's not crazy.
Then he would be the 85.
There's
likely.
That's riding a motorcycle is not crazy.
Depends on how you're riding it in particular.
Wow. Yeah.
All right, next podcast.
Yeah.
Is she crazy? Is he crazy?
No. So our number 54 podcast, if people want to look it up, is, you haven't seen this title yet, Tara Goes to Therapy. That was one before the last one. 55 will go up today, and then this one will be 56 probably in a day or two. And then it's called Tara Goes to Therapy, Relationship Talk, When to Let Go, Paying Attention Midstream, What Will Come Back to Haunt You.
Wow, that's a long title.
Yeah, and look at how popular Walk Like a Man is. Walk Like a Man, John's great-grandma came from Norway when she was 16. It's bigger than your feelings. Those are all the headlines.
Oh, I see you're doing like the bullet points.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
I stopped putting in JT Marital Arts on the title just because then it shows the title easier.
Okay.
So yeah, I've
Cool.
got some popular ones there. I don't know if it's the title or if it's just the timing.
Yeah.
But
well, we'll see. All right.
All right, that's it.
Right.
All right, we're wrapping
Off
it up.
to build the chicken coop.
Woo.